to share my message a bit later. There are other debt counselling agencies out there. I don't want to say that there are none other, because there isn't. There's Citizens Advice Bureau do a fantastic job. There are paid agencies, which maybe do such a good job or not, but there are paid agencies that you can go to get help from as well. But do you know what? I don't know, especially in Corby, of any other debt counselling service that has Jesus at the centre of it. And I can promise you, as I come to share later, it is Jesus that makes the difference. It is Jesus that performs miracles in people's lives. And it is Jesus that performs miracles in people's finances. Because somebody said that I had the skills to do this job. I tell you what, I haven't got the skills to do this job. I couldn't do this job if the Holy Spirit wasn't preparing the ground in advance, wasn't standing there in the room with me, and wasn't intervening in these people's lives. So I promise you today, you will hear stories of how that has happened. We've got a short video to watch now, and this is about a lady called Bev, and this is a true story from a client in another part of the country that works with CAP.
My dad is always shouting at my mum. My mum keeps on telling me she's worried about money. Every time someone knocks at the door, I'm scared. My mum makes me open the door and tell them she's not in. Some days I can't go to school because I don't have the uniform. I know Mum finds it hard to feed us, so I look in bins behind the shops or steal food and give it to Mum.
As an adult, I carried on what I'd learnt as a child. I was in debt and I resorted to crime and prostitution to make ends meet. When I called CAP for help, I was seriously depressed and suicidal. I hadn't been out of the house for 15 months and I was reliant upon alcohol to numb the pain. When Nick and Anne from CAP came, they came into my home. It was amazing because I was so depressed and suicidal and all thinking about going back to my old life. And they started praying for me and showing me the way to get out of debt. I started to feel God come back into my life. Matt and Nick told me that I had to put my debts in an envelope, unopened, and send them off to the CAP office. I couldn't believe it because no one ever, I'm 50 and no one has ever helped me with my debts. It's like a side of the Father heart of God that I'd never seen before, and it was the Father that I'd wanted all my life. What was good but was very hard was to stick to the budget that they'd set for me for 2 years. If you want to get out of debt, you've got to do what they tell you and stick to it and be disciplined, and it's worth it in the long run to become debt-free. Becoming debt-free through CAP and the support and love they've shown me and given me has totally liberated my life, and I'm free to go forward into my future without them ball and chain around my feet anymore.
Hi, my name's Suze and I live in Southampton. I'm a mum to 2 small children, and our church opened up a CAP debt centre. 3 years ago I became a life changer and just gave regular donations, which I knew were going to a good cause. Since we opened this centre, I have seen firsthand how CAP has a massive impact on the families like Bev's that live in our community. Now I know that I'm a life changer. I know that CAP have got a vision to expand their centres, so will you join me and 20,000 other life changers who have got a heart for the poor and really want to see people come to know Jesus in a personal way in their communities? Will you become a life changer today?
Sue's mentioned in the video, she was speaking about something called Life Changers, and we'll come in and talk about that a bit later. Ruth has just told me to stop walking around, so I'm going to have to try. I'm going to have to try and stand still, which may or may not be easy. And you may see me running after the service, but that'll be for wholly different reasons. Right, if you'd like to turn in your Bible to Luke chapter 4, verse 16. Here we find Jesus coming to Nazareth, and so we'll pick up the story at verse 16. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as was his custom, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day. And he stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives and the recovering of the sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour." They are incredibly important verses to me. They are incredibly important verses to CAP. And you may be wondering what those verses have to do with supporting CAP, with running a CAP centre here in Corby. And I hope to unpack that in the next 15-20 minutes. But I wanted just to show you, I hope you can all see this. I printed it this morning. It's a nice £10 note. I just wondered how much people think a £10 note weighs. And that's a bit of a rhetorical question, because if you've got a lot of money, it actually doesn't weigh that much. Because if you are financially blessed, the pressure of not having money isn't an issue. You see, money is, in my mind, the only thing that actually gets heavier the less you have of it and the more you owe of it. And that's my story. From personal experience, I can tell you that when you're looking at bills that are due to go out of your bank account the next morning, and you're not sure that the overdraft or the credit card quite cope with all those bills going out, it is horrendous. It is the worst feeling in the world. And I was kind of fortunate when I was at my lowest point, when I was right down on my knees, when I was so far down, when I was right here. I can literally remember it. I remember sitting in front of my computer screen. We just had Joshua. So I had Ruth and a baby, and I was meant to be providing for them. I was on my knees. I was a Christian, but I was on my knees because I did not have the money for my family to live. I'm not proud of that. I'm ashamed sometimes. I was certainly ashamed then to say that I actually wasn't sure if we could go shopping on Friday and buy food, because I had not managed my finances properly. Because every time I got up onto one knee, every time it felt like each month that we were getting a little bit better, wham, the car would break down. The fridge would pack up. The washing machine would throw a wobbly, and we would be back down on our knees with no money, with credit card debts amounting to more than I want to share, thinking, what are we going to do? How am I going to get us out of this mess? Because I kept thinking it was me. I kept thinking that I had to get us out of this situation. You see, debt enslaves people. Financial problems chain people to situations they wouldn't want to be. 9% of Corby Food Bank clients tick on their box that they're coming to the food bank for food because they are in debt problems. And do you know what? I don't think 9% is the truth. I think it's a lot more than that, because we have a lot of boxes you can tick. But I would hesitate to guess it's at least 25% of the people that come to the food bank are coming, and part of that reason is debt. 72% of all CAP clients admit to missing meals. I would say over 50% of the CAP clients I have visited, we have had to give them a food parcel immediately. And in some cases, through circumstances, we've actually had to take them shopping as well to buy extra food. Between April and June of this year, 84 properties were repossessed every day. 84 individuals and families became homeless every day because their property was repossessed. And do you know what? I used to think that that was okay. If you got repossessed, okay, it's not a nice experience. You'll end up out on the street, but the council will find you somewhere to live. That's not true. It's actually not true. They're not obliged to find you somewhere to live if your house is repossessed, unless you are a vulnerable person. Now, if you've got children or medical conditions, then you generally fall into that category. But if you don't have children and are made homeless because your house is repossessed, and they decide that is almost intentionally you have made yourself homeless. And so they are not obliged to find you somewhere to live. During the year ending June 2013, Citizens Advice Bureau, who do a fantastic job at helping people with their debts, here they do it in Corby, they do it all over the UK, but every day in England and Wales, they were seeing 7,420 new debt problems every working day. Over 7,000 new debt problems every day. They are a voluntary-led organisation, mainly. They are a secular organisation. They do a lot of good work, but no organisation like that relies on grants and relies on fundraising can deal with 7,420 new inquiries, new problems every working day. 40% of CAP clients have either contemplated or attempted to commit suicide before they contact us. For too long, people in the UK, in Corby probably, have thought that the church is irrelevant, that the church doesn't care about their situation, that the church can't help them. We're seen as a Sunday morning club where you go, possibly you sit on some pews, you hear some old hymns, you pray to a God, you leave, and your life continues as on the journey that it was on. People say the church has become irrelevant. The church hasn't become irrelevant. Maybe in some cases we've become distant. Maybe in some cases we've forgotten that we were called to set the captives free. And if you knock on somebody's door and want to tell them about Jesus, it's pretty hard to do that when they were actually thinking you may well have been a bailiff, calling to remove their sofa and their stuff from their house. Sometimes, just sometimes, we have to help people first. Sometimes we have to go in and show Christianity in action first. So that then we almost earn the right to share the good news with people. And that's what CAP is about. Yes, it is, even with me doing some of the advice, CAP provides world-class, fantastic, free, unbeatable debt advice. They know what they're doing. They get people debt-free. They get people budgeting properly. They help people. Are they successful in every case? No. They're not. But they do good. They help people. But they have Jesus. We have Jesus. We are Jesus' representatives right here, right where we're standing, right where you live, right where you go to work, right where you shop. We are Jesus' representatives. And we are called to set people free. And debt is killing this country. You know, there are many other things that I've spoken about, sometimes riskily from the front, gay marriage, all of those things. But debt is killing this country. Even with all of the reductions in giving, in spending by the government, we still are borrowing money every day to fund things. Every day, this country has to borrow money to pay its nurses, its teachers, its doctors, its soldiers, pay for new roads, pay for new schools. It borrows that money. And there will come a day when we can't pay it back. And do you think it's pleasant now? When that day comes, when as a country we've fallen in love with consumerism, with having it now, with wanting it now, with wanting to always strive to improve, there will come a time when we can't afford it. That was my problem. I can't say I had a gambling problem. I can't say I had a drinking problem. I wish I could say I didn't eat too much, but you'd know I was lying. I just kept wanting more. I wish I could say when I became a Christian, that changed. Sometimes I think we may be a little bit guilty of saying it's like a magic bullet. You become a Christian, your life changes for good, you don't do anything wrong, you get your finances sorted out, your marriage is perfect, you're going to walk, your halo will be glowing and everything will be fantastic. I've got a wake-up call. I spent more money after I became a Christian than when before. I just couldn't be happy. I just found it really hard to accept that I couldn't have the latest television, the latest cars are my weakness. You should ask Ruth about it. Don't let me near a car showroom. They are my weakness. I do stupid things. Do you know once, I'll tell you this, she's going to kill me. I went to buy a car. We just found out that we were going to have Joshua, and I like to be prepared, so 8 months in advance I thought we need a new car. And I went and I'd seen this car, and I liked Mondeos. And it cost a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of money, but in those days credit was freely available. And I went in, and the showroom, the salesman must have thought, sucker, this is going to be easy, because it was all written over my face. You know, I'm going to buy this car. And I even had them write on the paperwork, sold, subject to wife's approval. Because I just knew how much trouble I would be in. And so I signed a contract with that handwritten on it as well, subject to wife's approval. And I was persuaded. And I could spend money, and I couldn't be contented. But God sorted me out. God got hold of my life, moved me to Corby, got me paying off my debts. Yes, I had some help the first time around, twice, I had help from my dad. The third time, I actually probably grew up a little bit and thought, I'm going to have to sort this out myself. But God helped me to be content, to understand, to not want the latest thing, to actually realise I had to live within my means. But I want to tell you a story now about a client that we have here in Corby. And if you don't believe me that God's involved in this thing, you will hopefully after the end of this. One of the very first clients we took on, we went round, actually Carol was on the visit with me. We went to the property, we turned up, It wasn't a horrendous situation, but it wasn't the easiest situation either. And one of the first things they gave me was a summons to court. And I could tell by this gentleman's face that he was terrified. It wasn't like it was a council tax bill, it wasn't like it was to the Inland Revenue, it was just a bulk standard loan that either one of you could have got, either one of us could have got and fallen behind with. But this summons had been served to him correctly. I used to serve summons as a side issue before I worked for the church. I was a debt collector, which is bizarre, and I'll explain it another day. But I'd seen plenty of summons served, and this summons had been served correctly. And this summons said, you come to court on this date, because if you don't, you run the risk of going to prison for 14 days, because you haven't come to court. Now this client was upset. This client was vulnerable. I looked at the paperwork, we looked at the date, I said, okay, that's not a problem, I'll come and pick you up, we'll go to court, we'll explain to the judge that you're working with Christians Against Poverty and that we will hopefully sort this bill out for you and get your budgeting and get something being paid to this company. I remember going round, it was snowing, I went to pick up the client, I walked through the door and I just looked at this client and he started to cry. They have children. All he could think about was that he was convinced he was going to prison. And before we'd gone anywhere, we'd gone through some tissues, hugging, and I was able to reassure them to say, no, we've been praying about this. You're not going to go to prison. This is going to sort itself out. We drove to Kettering. It must have been the strangest journey I've ever had driving to Kettering. It took us about 20 minutes. It was pretty silent in the car. I tried to make chit-chat, but you could tell how worried this client was. Once we found the right court, there's two courts in Kettering I now know, one's a magistrate's court, one's a county court. We got to the right place, and it's changed since when I used to have to go to court for other things with clients and other people. Now you have to go through security. It's like an airport, you get wanded up and down for Kettering. I'm not sure who they think is going to go in there, but you get searched and you go through and you have to present yourself to the counter, to the clerk, and just say, right, I'm here, I've got a court appointment at 10:15, and you read out your case. So it's Mr. Smith versus Robinson Way. And we looked, and the court clerk looked up at me rather blankly. I was like, okay, well, we're here, it's the right date, we're definitely in the right place this time, and we're on time. And he said, well, I don't know what's happened here, but we've not got you down for court today. The company that are taking you to court haven't told us that they've got hold of you and served the warrant in order for you to come to court, so you can go home. He looked at me, we walked out, and at that moment I am convinced he realised God was real and God could perform miracles. This warrant had been served correctly. There was no reason at all why we should not have been in front of a judge that day, explaining the situation and trying to persuade the judge not to take any drastic action. But God intervened. Don't know how, don't know why, but God intervened. And we walked out of there, and the journey back to Corby was a lot different to the journey there. So thank you, God. Thank you, God. In John 14, verse 12, it says, very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. When Jesus was speaking, he was speaking about the Spirit being poured out on him. But that same Spirit is available to every single one of us. And actually we're told that we will do greater things because he is going to the Father. This is the church's time. This is our moment here in Corby to actually shake off and to say we can be even more relevant than we already are. When I say here in Corby, we're a relevant church anyway. We do lots of good things. We do the food bank, we do social action, we do street pastors, we have fantastic youth work, we get involved in people's lives. But this is a chance for us to go where people are really, really, really trapped, who are thinking of suicide, who are missing food, who do have children who can't go to school or who have to go to school in trainers and tracksuit bottoms because they cannot afford school uniform. And we can go and be relevant church. That's what we're called to be. We don't water down what we believe. If somebody rings up and asks for an appointment with Christians Against Poverty, they know what they're going to get. It's in the title. I don't have to worry about sharing the gospel. I don't have to worry about praying with people. It's in the title. Maybe with food bank it's not as clear, but with Christians Against Poverty, you're going to hear the gospel at least once. You can tell me you don't want to hear it again, that's fine, but I'm going to tell it to you once, you like it or not. It's that simple. I have a script, and that's, you're going to hear the gospel. And shortly, we're going to hear from somebody who has been a CAP client, a Corby CAP client, and the difference in their life. But as I was kind of finally preparing last night, I was really aware, and but I've been there. Even when I was down on my knees, I would look at other people and sometimes run the risk of judging them. Judging where they were, judging their situation, judging their problems, judging their decisions. And I was drawn to Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 to 2, where again Jesus speaking, he says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way as you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." Do I go and visit clients' houses and agree with every decision they make? Probably not. But do I have to remind myself that I, 10 years ago, were making exactly the same decisions? We're making unwise choices. And if I judge them, I'm inviting God to judge me. And I don't know about you, I don't want to be judged like that. I want to be judged because of the cross, because of what Jesus did for me. Not on the decisions that I made when I was a lot less wise than I am now. You know, if we're all on it, those of us that are working, even those of us that maybe are working at the moment and have benefits, how long could we survive as a family at our current level of living, in our current houses, if they were taken away? If you today went home and, heaven forbid, were made unemployed for no reason, for no fault of your own. Maybe you are employed and you think, well, the benefits will sort you out. £71 a week does not equate to frivolity, to mortgage repayments. If you're all honest, if we're all honest, yes, we may have savings, but I can give you examples of people, good people, normal people, that have been out of work for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months. How long would you survive on your savings? How long would you survive? So when we look at people's decisions, we have to ask ourselves, if my income was taken away from me now, if it was cut by half, by a third, how long could I survive? And do you know what? I'd want Christians Against Poverty to be there. Especially as a Christian. I'd want to be able to go to an organisation that could help me, that was Christian, that would pray with me, that would show me God's love. And through the prayers of many people before Hope Church, there is a CAP centre here in Corby. There is one. But you know what? I can see 2 new clients a month because of the size of the centre we are, the resources that we have available to us. I can see 2 new clients a month. I had to sit opposite somebody recently who's in danger of their house being repossessed and say to them, I can't see you till the middle of January because I'm fully booked and I can't just bump you up the list. So I hope it'll be all right. I'm going to pray that it'll be all right, but I can't see you till January. And there will always be limitations on what we can do. But I believe now is the time that God wants us to step out in faith. Initially, I have a belief that He wants us to double the amount of clients we can see a month, so that we can see 4 new clients a month. There's a lot of work that goes into a new client. That's why there's on how many you can see. Ultimately, I believe God is saying there'll be a time when we 10 new clients a month, but 4 is the figure for now. And at the end of the service, we're going to take up the collection. For those of you that thought you'd got away with it, it's coming, don't worry. We're going to have the collection at the end of the service, and there's going to be 2 things I'm going to ask you to do. And there'll be a time to think about this beforehand. There are 2 ways you can support CAP. The first way, how you can support CAP nationally. I'm quickly looking for my thing. Is it not here? Can I borrow that one? Thank you. It's become a life changer, as you saw Sue's on the video. And near you, on a chair somewhere, there will be one of these life changer forms. This is to help CAP nationally. This isn't to help the Corby Centre. It does help us, but it's primarily to help CAP nationally. And this involves you becoming a life changer, giving a monthly amount to CAP. I think you can start off as low as £3 a month, and they don't mind how high you go. So I ask you to consider that, becoming a life changer. They'll send you updates on how they're doing. If you would like to do that, and if you could fill that in today and hand it in to Carol on the desk over there afterwards, that would be fantastic. That will help us out. So that's one way you can support CAP. But we're also going to take up a love offering today. We don't do love offerings very often here at Hope Church. But in order for us to double the size of the centre that we are, we need to raise £5,000 to be able to get the extra resources through CAP, to increase the amount, to increase the type of centre. I could bore you with how it works. But just trust me, I'm your assistant pastor, I'm not going to lie to you. We need to raise £5,000 today, hopefully, to do that. So that we can make that change and that we can see 4 new clients a month. And you never know, if we do it quick enough, I just might be able to see 4 new clients in November, which means the lady that thinks she's waiting to January to help will get to see us in November. Because I can do that if we can get this money and we can get it through quick enough. So near you again, you'll see a little brown envelope that has my lovely handwriting written during X Factor last night or whenever I was doing it. It looks like that. And it says CAP on it. Any money that you put into this envelope and put into the offering when it comes round will be used purely for CAP at Hope Centre, for CAP at Hope Church. It will go hopefully towards that £5,000 that we need to raise to make the changes we need to change. We've been communicating this for a couple of weeks. I hope we've all been praying and thinking about this prayerfully. If you want to give online because you're unprepared today, that's absolutely fine. Please go online. Where you see the word reference, can you put CAP so that we know it's a CAP centre? But also, if your contributions are gift aidable, so if you're part of the gift aid scheme where the government gives us 20% back of 20% extra of what you give, because we can claim it back from your tax, then please either put your name in there or let Amanda know how much you've given and when you gave it, so that we can claim the gift aid back. And if you're going to be putting cash into the envelope today and you're subscribed to the gift aid, write your name on the envelope as well, please. There are pens over there. If you miss the collection, and if you're not quite ready, then bring the envelopes and hand them to Carol afterwards. That would be great. Cheques payable to Hope Church, please. And the money will be used, it goes in the brown envelopes for the work of CAP here in Corby. Church, we don't do this very often. God wants us to do this. We have seen, and it's going to sound, you know what, I was going to say it was going to sound a small number, but it's not a small number, because you know what? It's a really great number. We've seen, since April this year, 3 people come to know Christ. And I repent, I was going to say that was a small number, because that sounds horrendous, and that's not my heart. We've seen 3 people become Christians because of this, and we are influencing and changing the lives of numerous other people in Corby. Do you know what? It's just not the people we see. It's their families, it's their friends, because we go and see them and they say, those guys from Christians Against Poverty, from Hope Church, they've helped me. We are getting clients referring their friends. So that says we're doing something right. Please consider it. If you're not prepared today, if you want to give money next week or want to think about it, then just let me know so that we know what the money's for. I'm going to invite somebody who, she probably laugh when I say this. Incredibly special lady, an incredibly brave lady. So Vicky, would you like to come to the front? Now, so those of you that were at the baptisms last week will have heard some of this before. I've asked her this time to say any nice things, but we'll see where that goes. Vicky is wonderful. She's incredibly brave to stand here in front of you all today. Vicky was one of our CAP clients, and she's going to explain her story in a minute. I'm going to ask some questions. I think I can remember what they are. Vicky was really kind enough to allow the two directors giving Steven Spielberg a run for his money, Tony and Aaron, and I made my acting debut, the opportunity to come into our house this week and to record an interview with her, which we've recorded and we've put together and will be appearing on the Hope website very shortly about CAP. So that will be a permanent thing that we have. We're actually going to send it to CAP head office as well, which we think is brilliant. And we think you're brilliant, we think you're really, really brave. So I'm going to start off just by asking Vicky, what led to your money troubles? Can you just give your story to all the guys here?
It started, basically when I was 16, I was young. I left school because I hated it, went and got a job. The more money that I earned, the more credit people would give you, and it was absolutely brilliant. So I was buying all these fun things, and I was treating myself, and I was going out. After about 10 years, I looked at how much debt I was in, and it was a lot. I ended up losing my job because I was ill, I struggled with what I was doing. I had to go on benefits. It was a big drop from what I was earning, and obviously I couldn't pay my bills. The more I couldn't pay, the more they kept adding on to it, and it got higher and higher and higher, and I ended up nearly breaking down.
So, how did you hear about CAP?
It was actually my sister's fault that I heard about CAP. I went over to stay with my sister in Birmingham. CAP also run a centre up there, and they contacted my sister through her church because she's in there as well, and they've offered to help her out. She said to me, you need to ring them, because I was depressed. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to leave my house really. I didn't want to go out. I certainly didn't want to spend any money. So she gave me the number, and she wouldn't let me leave her sitting room until I'd run to make an appointment with CAP.
Excellent. And so I remember me and Carol came round to see you, met your 2 dogs. We had 2 at that time. They leapt on us, and that was fantastic. And we sat down and we did that first visit with you. Could you just explain what your journey's been like with CAP and how you found it?
To start off with, it was very nerve-wracking. I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, I knew they were Christians. I didn't want to be pushed into believing about God. I didn't want to be battered with the Bible, pretty much. So I was really, really scared. When Adam and Carol came round, they were absolutely brilliant. They calmed me down, they talked me through everything. They were so impressed that I was really organised, and I knew exactly what debt I was in, and I had all my paperwork. They went through the whole process with me, and they helped me sort out what I needed to do, what they were doing. They were on the phone if I had any questions. They contacted the CAP Centre as well, CAP head office, who also contacted me and stayed in touch with me. And it was just the best experience I can honestly say.
And your your journey with CAP has probably lasted about 10 months, well less than that, actually probably about 7 or 8 months, didn't it? And so, how are things now?
Things are brilliant. I'm now debt free. I also help CAP on a monthly basis with a donation, and I support at the food banks with CAP. I just feel fantastic. I love to tell my story. I love to encourage people with my story so that they can get help as well. And it just feels like the best thing ever. If you're in debt, the best advice I can give you is to contact CAP.
And it was a great honour, I think 2 weeks ago now, with Damien to baptise Vicky and for her to publicly state her faith. You didn't believe beforehand, you had a little bit of a belief, didn't you? But you didn't believe beforehand. But through the journey of CAP, through the work of Carol befriending her, it was an honour to, one, be here when Vicky gave her life to the Lord, but then two, with Damien a couple of weeks ago to baptise her. Vicky doesn't know, I've told her millions of times, I don't think she believes me. I was pretty close to calling it a day, to saying I don't think CAP's going to work in Corby, I can't get my head around it. And as much as CAP has helped her and introduced her to God, she kept me in CAP. So that's why, unbelievable lady, very organised, that's what I loved, that's what I needed. God knew my issues I had when I got there. And He sent Vicky to us as much as we went to Vicky. So I want to give her a round of applause. She doesn't like public speeches. She's done it 3 times, I think, this month already. Thank you very much. I'm going to invite Carol to come back up. We've got 5 minutes before you get your children. If you're sitting there now and you've got debt problems, you've got money problems, you may be not at the stage where actually you can't afford to pay everything, but you're beginning to get worried. Come and speak to me either after the service, or if you're worried about doing it in front of everybody, give me a call at some point this week. And we can arrange, we can have what I call a sneaky peek, and just have a little look at the situation and see if there's anything we can do, if we can put you in touch with somebody, or whether we can put you through our CAP Money programme. Just to flag up, there are leaflets that talk about the CAP Money, so which talk about the kind of MOT for your finances, the budgeting course that we do. They're available over on the table. This one is just a general leaflet, it has my contact details on the back. We are also starting a CAP Money course on the 8th of November at the Hope Centre. That's a Friday morning at 9:15, and there are invites over there. If you're from church and you want to come on that, then just sign up. You don't need to take an invite. A form to sign up on the table. But if you know of anybody that you'd like to invite along, I wouldn't recommend going up to somebody and saying, look like you've got a lot of debt, here, take this. It's liable to end up in some kind of agony for you. But if you think of somebody who's maybe shared with you that they have some financial concerns, then maybe think about giving them one of these flyers, and they're over there as well. We can get you more of them if you need them. CAP changes lives. I'm meant to have spoken about all the volunteers I need to help CAP. I need befrienders to come out and visit. I need people to make teas and coffees and to be kind of social hosts at the CAP Money courses. Hopefully, If we get the £5,000, we'll be looking to get some more volunteer debt coaches to increase the amount of people we can see. If you would be interested in any way in helping CAP here in Corby practically by serving at one of the events or anything like that, there's a sheet over there. Just put your name, your contact number. If you think you've got an area that you definitely want to work in, pop that down. If you will, leave it blank and I'll contact you and persuade you of an area that you should be working in. Thank you for listening this morning. Carol's going to lead us in some worship. The guys are going to send around the collection buckets now as well. Pray hard, guys. This stuff works. This makes church relevant.